And I tell you, the biggest difference in who I am is because I am here now. I am present now. I take full responsibilities, right? Full responsibility of my actions now. All right. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. Today we had a lot of technical issues. We couldn't get our computer up and running, but the show must go on. So I do appreciate your patience in that. Today's subject is a quote that I ran into this weekend. Part of my process is to constantly challenge my mind, challenge the thoughts in my mind by going back to people that have lived life at a high level. And I was doing a little bit of research on this samurai warrior known as the greatest warrior of all time. And his name is Miyamoto Musashi. And he said something very interesting that still applies to this day. And we're talking about maybe thousands of years, right? And he said, if you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. And what that means to me right off the bat is our ability to be present, or awareness, right? To be present of our patterns, our behaviors, to be present at the moment and not thinking too much in the future or living too much in the past. And this morning, I'm walking into the office and I'm carrying my backpack. I'm carrying my water bottle. I'm carrying my lunchbox. And I catch myself on the reflection of the glass right before I enter the office. And I remember I took a selfie picture about 4.5 years ago in the same situation, right? With my backpack, with my water, with my lunch, ready to dominate the day. And I started thinking about who I am today and where my capacity has come today as a business owner, as a father, right? As just a leader. And I started thinking about the patterns that created that. You know, I just didn't wake up one day and I say, I'm going to be this person. It was a series of events, a series of behaviors that led to the person that I am today. And I am more powerful today, right? I can clearly state that if I compare it to one person and one person alone, which is myself 4 years ago, which is myself 3 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. I am greater, more powerful today. Because there's a series of patterns that have led me to this point. And I will be more powerful in 5 years from now. I will be more conscious, more aware of what's going on in my life. My behaviors will be zoned in to what works in my life. I am aware of that. So as I start looking at the chaos and dysfunction of yesteryear, I start thinking about the patterns that I was not aware of, about the behaviors I was not aware of, thinking that everything was outside my control. Because it was a lack of awareness, it was lack of consciousness of my behaviors. So I'm looking at myself and I'm like, wow, this image just flashed back to 4 years ago. And I tell you, the biggest difference in who I am is because I am here now. I am present now. I take full responsibilities, right? Full responsibility of my actions now. And I remember, for a long time, especially during, as things were starting to unravel in my life, right? It was the patterns of lack of good behaviors. It was the pattern of bad habits that my life in 2012 and 2013 were just unraveling to a point where I just couldn't live with myself, right? I was prepared to walk away from everything that I built, including my own family. It was just a state of mind that I was in. And I remember going to these self-help seminars. And I can't tell you how many I went to. I spent 2 years traveling. And I would get caught up in this euphoric feeling of being at these seminars and thinking I have it all figured out. I remember calling my wife and saying things are going to change. Tears streaming down my eyes. Couldn't even contain my own emotion. Time after time after time. Only to come back to my same patterns. 2 days afterwards. So I would sign up for another one and go through the same pattern over and over like an old broken record. I felt great under certain circumstances and environments. But then life happens. I can't barely hear myself. And then life happens. And we go back to our lowest form of habit. Because one thing that I understood is that everything I said I was going to do was a belief on a surface level. It was never truly ingrained in me that I could actually pull it off, this lifestyle that I had in my mind. And we always hear about this. You got to be able to hear it. You got to be able to see it before you can create it. And I was all under this false impression. I'm envisioning all this. I'm envisioning a marriage that actually works, a business that is profitable. I'm imagining all this. But yet it's not coming into fruition. Well, I'll tell you why. Because it was all on a surface level. What was brewing below that was distrust in myself. I couldn't reinforce that vision because I didn't have the patterns to be able to pull it off. I truly didn't think that was possible for me. I would say all these great things. It would sound nice, but deep down inside, I knew I couldn't pull it off because I couldn't trust myself, because I was living in a life that I often said something but never followed through. There was no integrity. When there is no integrity, there's no foundation. So we see this all the time. Millions and millions of people flocking into these self-help seminars, but yet only a small fraction actually change their lives. Because it's deep-rooted. It's deep-seated. It's in your soul. You know, for some reason or another, you can't pull it off. Lack of trust. You know it's only temporary. And there is no integrity. And I'll define integrity very simply. You say you're going to do something, then you do it. You say you're going to do something, then you do it. That is integrity in the simplest form. So there is no way I can make these life-changing patterns or behaviors last because there was no integrity in the foundation. Why? Because it was the first thing that I just mentioned. Lack of awareness. Lack of awareness in my behaviors. Failure to take full responsibility for my actions. So, the only way to really start changing something is to reinforce the patterns of achieving. Right? And here's the thing. That's sometimes harder done than said, right? It's easier said than done. Let me flip that around. Because we have this negative programming, whether it's through our own personal experiences, or oftentimes it is already embedded in us the way we were raised, by watching our parents struggle, by watching their marriage or their dysfunctional patterns, watching them how they either gave up or became resilient and kept going. This is all things that we learn through our own through behavior. We watch our parents. They're the number one influencer in our lives. So, whenever we get to that point, we pretty much do the same thing that they do. We watch how they handle stress. We watch how they shut down. Or how they only reach a certain level of success. So these behaviors are being ingrained into our own head, into our own consciousness, subconsciousness. And we repeat what we see. So a lot of us have this negative programming going. And right when we're about to make something great for ourselves, we're like, we go to a certain ceiling and then we go back to our old patterns. Because the old patterns, again, are reinforced by what we've seen through our own parents. And here's one thing that I want you to think about. here's one thing that I want you to think about. Whatever your kids are seeing will be magnified in their lives. And you're simply a magnification of what you saw in your parents. Think about that very carefully. You are simply a magnification of what you saw in your parents, and your kids will magnify what they see in you. So how do you deal when something doesn't go your way? Guess what? Your kids will magnify that. How well do you take care of your body? Your kids will magnify that. How functional is their marriage? Your marriage. Magnification is something the offspring do. So I know it's hard to be able to break these patterns if that's all we see. That's why awareness is so important in your life. Aware of your own behaviors and realize that if you're magnifying dysfunctional patterns, it is your responsibility to stop it so that you don't pass that on to your kids. So yeah, we're in the hole oftentimes. Whatever your parents couldn't figure out, we have to deal with it, right? But it's magnified. It's harder to break out of that cycle. And whatever you couldn't figure out, you're leaving it up to your kids to try to figure out. And guess what? It's not like they're playing on a level playing field. You just put them 10 steps behind where you started from because you couldn't figure out the patterns that were dysfunctional. That's why I couldn't change my behaviors after these self-help seminars. Because of what I saw and what I thought was possible for me were surface level. It wasn't deeply ingrained in me. I've done some things over the last few years that have changed that for me. I've learned to trust myself. I've learned to lead myself. I learned to be able to identify the good patterns and the bad ones, the good habits and the bad ones. That's what I've been able to do. And now there's an expectation that I will succeed. Because it's always on the forefront of my thought process that I am going to grow and I am going to succeed. So it's an expectation. Because we all know that what we believe to be true becomes reality. So those times where I say everything was going to change, I didn't really think that. I didn't really believe it. There was nothing to really back it up. My behaviors didn't back it up. My mind, my beliefs didn't back it up. So it was temporary. It was temporary and only available, and I only had access to it while I was at that seminar. So when we become aware of our patterns, when we become aware of how we show up in our business or how we show up in our marriage or how we show up for ourselves, you're able to identify certain things. And goes back to the Musashi quote. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. So if you have a pattern of being able to reach a certain level of success and then find a way to tear it down, it's also relevant somewhere else in your life. And the only way to break that cycle is to be consistent in other aspects in your life. Why do you think I'm so committed to just the core four? Taking care of my body every day. Making sure that I feed my brain something positive every day. Making sure I'm committed to my family every day. Making sure I'm doing something for my business every day. Because those are my patterns. That's the foundation. I'm more likely to succeed knowing that I can keep going. Before, when it was sporadic, my results were sporadic. And your results may be sporadic for that same reason. Because if you can't maintain a certain lifestyle of taking care of yourself, how are you supposed to maintain your business from continuing to grow? You can't. And that's why you'll see the peaks and the valleys. So it is about identifying where you're at and understanding, where do we have this negative programming? Where have we watched our parents struggle? Where have we watched them give up? How do they handle stress? How do they shut down? And are you just reliving their patterns? Or are you doing something for yourself to improve the next generation? Awareness on a deep-rooted level. But you cannot get that unless you're able to stick to your word by saying, I will do this, and I will follow up by actually doing it. So here's what I want you to think about. This is the best way to make this possible. You have the vision of what you want for your business. You have it, right? I want you to tie it into something that you've been able to achieve in the past. That euphoric feeling you got when you actually won. When you were at your happiest moment. There's always this specific thought in my mind when I was 18 years old. I was in a situation, as many of you know, where I was fighting for my life. And I literally almost bled out. That changes a person, right? Traumatic events change us. And there may have been a traumatic event in your life where it could have been completely different from what I experienced, but the feelings are very much the same. We felt hopeless. We felt defeated. We felt at our lowest point. And I remember as I'm recovering, we were driving down the I-10. And to me, it was the most beautiful day of my life. Like I just paid special attention to every aspect around me. Everything. The buildings just seemed to glow. The sky was just extra blue. The clouds were just so much more fluffy, right? Everything was beautiful. The sounds of the wind. Because I was present at the moment. I appreciated my life at that exact moment. But I've experienced that feeling before, but we just forget. Whenever we strive for something, we see the beauty in it. We're elated. We're in the moment. So as you start thinking about what you want for your business, I want you to tie it in to that specific moment. And it may take you closing your eyes and trying to remember. Was it the day you met that special someone? The day you worked for that car that you've always wanted? The day you graduated from college? What was that special moment where you worked your ass off and you actually achieved it? Or when the odds were against you and you were able to pull it off? So now you have what you want for your business. And I want you to tie it into the relevancy of a past experience. I want you to put yourself in that place right now. Because that makes it real to our conscious. It remembers you've been here before. You've been there before. So now, you have the vision. You've correlated it to that specific moment. Now, you come back to the present. And you understand that there's certain patterns to get you there. And every time you don't want to take on those actions, I want you to think about that special moment. Because that'll drive you to the next step. That'll drive you through the monotony of the process. And that's all it is. Right now, there's this great vision I have. And I've tied it in to those special moments in my life of where this brokerage is going. Things are going to change dramatically. Even this office. And there's this grand vision. And I already see myself there. I see myself walking through the doors. I see the people within this new office. It's going to happen. Because I've had a pattern of being able to do exactly what I said. And it's only a matter of time. And that drives my actions forward. That opens up my conscious, my subconscious, to look for those opportunities that will align me with that vision. And that's all you're trying to do. As you continue to reinforce those visions with the ability of tying it in to things you've already done, it becomes more real, more tangible. And some of us just go through the day not knowing, not having a vision. We have an appointment with the buyer, but we don't have a vision of what the end result is. So there is no result. So you're just at the mercy of whatever, I guess, happens, right? As opposed to being very clear, I'm going to find my clients the perfect home. They're going to walk through these doors and they're going to sign this contract. I'm going to this listing appointment. And they're going to ask me very good questions, and I'm going to dig deep inside, and I'm going to have the right answers for them. Having a vision, I'm going to walk out with signatures. We don't have enough vision because we're just going through the motions. But what would happen? My marriage is not where I should be, but today I'm going to come home and just show appreciation for my spouse. I'm going to be present. I'm going to put the phone down. But yet we just expect it. Yeah, we have a vision. The vision, I want a better marriage. But there's no actions to supplement that, to back that up. It is your responsibility to make sure you have a foundation of actions. And that's why I'm so committed to the core 4. Because I know if I can stick to that, by drinking my green smoothie every morning like I had this morning, I know that whatever comes my way, I will still continue to show up. It is ingrained. And guess what I'm doing? I'm passing that on to the next generation. My work ethic, my belief system, my desire to win, my desire to be fulfilled. Those are the patterns I want to continue to change for future generations. But at first I had to identify the negative programming that I had. I had to. So awareness. What is the difference between who I was and who I am? It's my awareness. What is the difference of who I was and who I am? It's my ability to identify things that don't work for me. Who I was and who I am. The ability to trust myself. Who I was and who I am. I expect to succeed each and every day. So I want you to start thinking about where you're at. Do you give up on your entire day just because of a series of things don't go your way? Today's going to be a bad day. Right? That's what we conclude oftentimes. Today's going to be a bad day. Today's a bad day. How often do you say that to yourself? Probably more often than I do. And those that are a much higher level, we probably say that way more than they do. So what kind of day will you have today? What are the thoughts that are at the forefront of your mind? Are they negative ones, positive ones? You decide. But understand it's your job. Your job to be present and identify those behaviors that are not working for you. Because unfortunately, they will be magnified by the next generation if you have kids. They will be magnified by your spouse. They will be magnified by anyone that you influence. So how do you show up to struggle? Do you give up? How do you handle stress? Do you shut down? That's the game. What are you guys hearing in this conversation? Because it is very relevant, right? If you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. And what's your expectation every day? I have an expectation to succeed. And guess what? I would say the vast majority of days I succeed at a very high level. Because I'm no longer looking for, I don't know what's wrong with me. I start looking at, what am I not doing that I said I was going to do? Because the feelings of defeat is when there's a disparity between what we said and what we're actually doing. So bridge that gap. Bridge it. Because those feelings are rooted for a reason. It's not because you have to find a new way to do things. You just have to go back to the things you forgot to do or are not doing anymore. So think about that this week. How are you feeling? And what are you not doing? If you really want to grow, what is the biggest way to identify that is being present and being aware. Good morning, Liz. Good morning, Olivia, Nick, David, Jermaine. Good morning, Claudia. Good morning, Isela, Gabe. Good morning, Susan. What are you guys getting out of this conversation? Like, where do you see yourself? What was that moment, right, where you felt so alive? When was it? Tie it into something that you truly want. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm making more changes in my life to elevate to the next level. I see myself 6 months from now, and I don't recognize her, but I'm excited to meet her. That is beautiful. In only 6 months, I went my entire early 30s without making a change. I was the same person from 25 to 30, from 30 to 35, exactly the same person. And then it seemed like every 6 months, I was morphing into somebody else. Just like you feel, Michelle. It's like an awakening of sorts, right? And it's all it is a self-awareness. That's all it is. Not just simply being motivated by other success, but being motivated by being able to identify these behaviors and appreciating our life journey, that it was perfectly executed, perfectly made for us. Regardless of how ugly we thought it was just a change of perspective. And it's like, thank you, Lord, I needed that. As I'm staring at my scar yesterday at the movies with Carla, where my arm is literally like deformed. And I'm looking as the light is shining in the dark theater. I just had so much appreciation. So much appreciation for this. Because they set a foundation. It changed the trajectory of my life. If it was not for this, I would not be here. If it was not for the things you went through, you would not be here. But the only way to be able to appreciate that is through the awareness of your actions. Being present and saying this is exactly how it needs to be. Set a vision of what you're trying to achieve daily and stop going through the motions. Haven't thought about my mindset is a byproduct of my parents' thinking or thought process. That's exactly what it is, right, Gabe? As we started looking at it, it's like, damn, I'm spinning around everywhere. Sorry about that. But we start thinking about, damn, like what am I showing my kids? What am I doing? And it's your job to be able to give them the edge. I don't want them to start where I started from. I want them 10, 20, 50 steps ahead. 100. Right? Why? Evolving. Rudy, my kids will magnify everything that I do, good or bad. That is the truth. You can still change. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. You can still change behaviors because you're still a huge influence in their lives. I understand that. You can still do that by living through integrity. Mom or dad says they're going to do this and they do it. Because it doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. Kids are not dumb. At some point, they stop believing what you say. Usually around 7, 8 years old. Then they start watching what you do. Guys, that's all I have today for today's episode of Mindset Mastery. If you have an opportunity to rewatch this, I think it'll really resonate with you of how much control you actually have of your life. But it's being self-aware, because that is the only thing that has changed my life. Then taking the appropriate actions, and we have it in our 12-week targets. And that will always be in the DNA of A's and Associates and everything that we do. The small reps gets you the big-ass results. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mindset Mastery, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day, everyone.